Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back. Got a new video for you all today, and this video is going to be about a very old game that, or at least a very old game to today's standards now, it feels like anyway, because it doesn't even feel like this game is, at this point now, 9 years old. We're going to be talking about Call of Duty Ghosts, and today's a bit of a video that is actually, in a way, going to lead into another set of videos that I'm hoping to try and make starting sometime, I would say, next week. And today's video is essentially going to be talking about how Call of Duty Ghosts, was it really an overly hated game? Was Call of Duty Ghosts one of the more underrated COD games that we've ever had? Was it just overly hated on? And we're basically going to talk about it. And ultimately, this is going to lead into hopefully a series of videos that I want to start, because there's a guy out there, there is a popular YouTuber out there named NoahJ456 who recently, within the last week, has started up a series where he went back and played Extinction in Call of Duty Ghosts. Now, him being a zombies YouTuber for Call of Duty and other various zombies games, that makes sense that he went back and played that. And of course, Extinction was Call of Duty Ghosts' third game mode. Of course, they had campaign, multiplayer, and then they needed to have a third game mode, which of course was Extinction. And he went back and he started playing all the old maps again from Extinction. And I thought that was really interesting because it got me thinking, man, I have not played this in a very long time. And when I say I haven't played Extinction in a very long time, I'm pretty sure I haven't played Extinction since maybe 2014. Or somewhere around then. It's been a very long time. I have not played Extinction since the game first came out, which is crazy to even think. And I was thinking, maybe I could go back and do my own little run through of Extinction and, kind of talk about it a little bit and play through it. And that's not in a way to say that I'm trying to copy what Noah J is doing, because I genuinely actually do want to go back and play that game. It really got me thinking, hey, you know what? Look, there's not that much out to play right now as far as new games. So let's go back to an older game and, play something that I personally have just not played in a very, very long time. I have not played Extinction in many, many years, and I feel like it is something maybe I can rekindle a little bit in my liking, because ultimately, again, going back to the original topic of this video, we're going to be talking about Call of Duty Ghosts and whether or not I think that this game overall, in the end, was it just an overly hated game that just did not deserve a lot of the flack that it got? Because essentially, to get it out of the way and say my 2 cents on this, I am a Call of Duty Ghosts defender. I am a defender of this game. And I know that's probably ultimately going to turn a lot of people off when I say that because, as I just said, Call of Duty Ghosts, I think now looking back on it, is one of the more hated and disliked COD games that we've ever had. And I just think at this point, that's just a fact. Like, the majority of the general COD community and just general fans of the franchise as a whole, they never really liked this game. Even nowadays, they look back on it and still say, yeah, you know what, that wasn't really all that good of a game. And to me, it's very different. I still defend that game. I really do. And at the time that this game came out, Call of Duty Ghosts was my second official COD game that I had ever played in my younger years, when I was way younger, because of course I said it before on this channel, Black Ops 2 was my first big deal real COD game. Obviously it wasn't my first ever COD game. Call of Duty 3 was my first COD game. That's the first one I played. No, I didn't play it when it first came out, but I did play it many years later. But of course that game was never mature rated, and so Black Ops 2 was the first real legit mature level COD game that I ever played and started playing. And of course Ghosts was the next COD that came after that. So I was much younger, and at the time, I didn't really think too much of it. I was actively enjoying myself while I was playing Call of Duty Ghosts, whether that was the campaign, that was the multiplayer, or even Extinction for that matter, because I did play quite a bit of Extinction when it first came out. And of course, I was also at the age where I didn't really have as much access to the internet to see how people really thought about the game. I just went into the game on my own, played it, didn't really had to care, well, not even really had to care, but I just never really knew the thoughts and opinions of so many other people out there on the internet in the COD community who had a general thought about if they liked the game or if they did not like the game at all. And so it got me thinking, like, is this game, now looking back on it, 8 to 9 years later, is this one of the more overly hated games? And again, as much as I hate to say this, for some people out there who will definitely disagree with me, I do think it was an overly hated game. I really, really do think it was an overly hated game. And of course, we have to take we have to take this in mind. 2013, when this game first released, it was a very different year, or not even just a very different year. Obviously, this was in the old days. The games obviously back then, they were very much improving and trying to branch out and do more different and new things. And ultimately, and you know what? Of course, right down below, comment down below. I just want to get this also out of the way. Comment down below. I want to know what you guys have to say about everything I have to say in this video. Are you somebody who is a Ghosts offender, or are you somebody who just didn't really like Ghosts at all? I want to hear that down below in the comments, and we can have a conversation about it. Keep it respectful. Debate with each other. Conversate. Please just have a conversation. I want it to be as respectful as possible, because I feel like if I do get people who comment on this video, they could just automatically come out and just start bashing the game and doing all this and, maybe arguing with other people. I don't want that. Just please comment down below what you thought of the game and what I have to say, because ultimately I will defend this game. And starting with the campaign, the campaign for me has always been a very interesting one for COD Ghosts. I think ultimately, while I don't think Call of Duty Ghosts is one of the most rememberable COD campaigns we ever had, that's not to say that it's a bad campaign. I just don't think it's one that I overly remembered. And don't get me wrong, it's not even remotely close to being the worst. I still hold the worst campaign in all of COD history. That still goes to Black Ops 3 by far and none. There's no other COD campaign that remotely takes that mantle as far as worst ever. But ultimately, yeah, it just wasn't a memorable campaign. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy my time playing it. I very much enjoyed playing that campaign. If anything, I think the story, it leaves, again, one of the biggest memes I feel that's ever come out of the COD games and the COD community is the fact that how that campaign ended, and the fact that it ended on such a huge cliffhanger. And I want to say, if I'm correct in saying this, it's the only Call of Duty campaign that we've ever had that actually did end on a cliffhanger and left it open for interpretation onto where we could get another story down the line. And of course, knowing where we are nowadays, we don't have another Ghosts game. We've only had the one COD Ghosts. We don't have a Ghosts 2. And ultimately, another thing I'd like to say about that is the fact that I think nowadays, where we see where COD is going, I really do think that they need to make another one. I do. Just with the amount of crap that we have gotten in the last 4 years with Black Ops 4, Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare 2019, and now even with Vanguard, they really need to make a COD Ghosts 2 sequel. Really, come on, man. Infinity Ward, you gotta do it. At this point, with the games that these companies and these developers are putting out, you gotta do a Ghosts 2. I really firmly believe that. And so the campaign, of course, as I just said, it's the only one that's ever been left on a cliffhanger. And I thought that cliffhanger was kind of interesting, I'm not gonna lie, even if people meme the hell out of it. So yeah, I enjoyed playing the campaign. Again, not the most memorable one, but I did enjoy playing it. Multiplayer, of course, is where I think this game probably maybe gets... It's 50-50 how much multiplayer and Extinction, which one ultimately got the most flack, because I think the campaign ultimately is the thing that most people would say is the best part about Ghosts. And ultimately, that's up for interpretation. Everybody can disagree on that and be more subjective about it and say like, oh, well, this other game mode was better than that one, or this game mode was better than this one. It's like, it's all up for interpretation. But I feel like multiplayer ultimately is where I feel like I've seen a lot of people give their strongest opinions on why the game was just not that good. And ultimately, again, I think Ghosts tried to do something that ultimately they were kind of feeding off what Modern Warfare 3 was trying to do, and I think Modern Warfare 3 ultimately probably did it better. And of course, one of those things that they brought in was specialist perks, and there was a lot of specialist perks, I'm not gonna lie, so it gave people, I feel, a lot of different options. So it was a very interesting concept, but ultimately I feel like a lot of people just didn't like how they did it in that game specifically. And there's a lot of things that I feel like people could call out in the multiplayer. The fact that, the maps in Call of Duty Ghosts just really aren't the most memorable maps ever. Like, I feel like a lot of people would degrade Ghosts to saying, is it really the most memorable game ever when it comes to multiplayer maps. And ultimately, in some ways, I kind of would agree. Yes, not every map in COD Ghosts is as memorable as the next. And, you know, I think ultimately, maybe the most memorable map in that entire game would probably be, honestly, it'd probably be Stonehaven. And that's not a good thing, because, as you know, if a lot of people don't know this, Stonehaven, again, another thing in the COD, you know, in COD history that is just absolutely memed to all hell. The fact that it is labeled as one of the worst maps that COD has ever put out in its entire history. And, you know, ultimately, while I do sort of agree with that, I do think Stonehaven is a type of map that I feel like if Ground War were, you know, a bigger thing back then, I think ultimately that would have been a great Ground War map. Ultimately, it just wasn't a great 6v6 map. And a lot of people just didn't like how the map was designed. They thought it was way too big. They thought it was way too open in certain spots, and you didn't really have much places to go, because the map, in a way, it's designed to where you can basically go anywhere you want on the map. It's not like a 3-lane designed map. And of course, you know, another map that I think a lot of people remember, because ultimately now it's become a 24/7 playlist type map, is the, oh God, man, I feel like I have to look it up now, but it's the baseball stadium map in Call of Duty Ghosts. It's a map that I think a lot of people will probably remember for a very long time, just because of the fact that, you know, it's a map that's played the most now, I think. Like, because obviously it has a 24/7 playlist a lot of the time, you know, even 9 years later. Strike Zone, that's the name of the map. Okay, now I remembered it. Strike Zone. That's another map in that game that a lot of people would probably remember. But ultimately after that, like, again, I don't know how many people could really remember all the names and all, like, the different aspects of any map in that game to justifiably say that, the game just suffered in that department. And then when it comes to guns and stuff, and how the time to kill and the score streaks and all that stuff, you know, again, people ultimately were a little 50-50 on that kind of stuff. I ultimately think the guns were well balanced. I think the score streaks, you know, what they did with the score streaks, I thought was very interesting. And again, it was something new, and I have to give them credit for that. They had attack score streaks, they had support score streaks, and then they had, I think, specialist score streaks. And again, it was different types of score streaks that would do different sort of things. And ultimately, even if not every single one worked to the ability that people wanted it to, I do find that concept of bringing in different types of score streaks was very, very interesting. I really do acknowledge that it was something new, and it was interesting at first, even if many people didn't really ultimately come to like it in the end, even all these years later, even when the game was released back in 2013. And so, you know, again, this is just, I think, and ultimately it was I feel like a lot of people will also, when it comes to the movement as well in the game, because ultimately movement does play a big factor in how people feel about the game and how it plays out, and whether or not, you know, it's fast movement or if it's slow movement. And the movement in Call of Duty Ghosts was, I feel like a lot of people did hinder it a little bit and say, like, you know, this is not really the greatest movement that we've ever had in COD. And, you know, ultimately, I can't really deny that. I think the movement does feel a little bit, it does feel very clunky at times, especially when you're using a specific weapon. If you're using a specific weapon in that game, it does feel way more clunky than if you were using like a pistol. Like if you're using a pistol, you're probably moving about at the right speed that you would be if you're holding like an LMG, like a heavy LMG, LSAT or something like that. Like you're gonna be moving pretty slow. And so, you know, ultimately there's just a lot of factors in the multiplayer that ultimately they left me feeling very 50-50. Ultimately, I think when it comes down to it, I think Call of Duty Ghosts multiplayer was just, it was just fine. You know, I can't really hate on the multiplayer. I enjoyed playing it a lot when it first came out. I didn't really have any problems with it. You know, I don't know what prestige I am currently at the moment. I'd have to check. I think because I'll have gameplay in the background right now as you're watching. I am recording this I'm recording the voiceover before I even get back to playing the game. So you'll see the gameplay and you'll see what prestige I am right on screen as you're watching. So I know I'm a bunch of prestiges in, and I played the game a lot. I played the game a lot when it first came out for multiplayer. And so now this leaves us with the final thing to round out Call of Duty Ghosts, and that was Extinction. Extinction to me is very interesting. Now, at the time, of course, Extinction was maybe it's a really interesting thing to talk about, because I almost want to say that Extinction was maybe the biggest thing that COD had ever strived to accomplish for something new that it had ever done in its entire history when it came to any game. Because ultimately, when it comes to a game mode like Extinction, at that point, you're taking a very big swing, and you're going for it, because ultimately, again, it was maybe the newest thing that nobody could have ever saw coming that they would try and do. And essentially, that was the fact that they're moving away from zombies, because at that point we had already had a bunch of zombies, different zombies modes from different games. And we also had Spec Ops from, some of the Modern Warfare series. So we had two very different third game mode options from previous games. And then, of course, Extinction came along and gave us a third different option for a third game mode that we had never had before. And that is essentially, Extinction, of course, is you are fighting aliens. That is essentially what Extinction is. You are fighting literal aliens that came from outer space, and you have to fight them, and you have to do all these different things. And it was in no way, shape, or form anything like zombies. It completely took what zombies did, or if anything, it didn't take what zombies did at all. It just did its own thing. It was something new. It was in a way, again, it was something interesting at the time that they did. And of course, essentially, the aspect of Extinction is that you're basically forced to do certain things on the game, where you have to take this drill and you have to drill into these like alien pods and like move your way around this giant map. And you have to get to a point in like, for example, the very first map, the original map that released with the game, you have to essentially, the objective is to plant a nuke in this giant crater in the earth. And it has to explode because, I think that's where the aliens landed. So they have to set a nuke off, and you have to move your way through the map and get to this location while completely getting rid of these like giant alien pods that are blocking your path, while also killing all these other aliens that are trying to stop you and your squad. And it's a very interesting concept. And of course, the way it ends is that you have to run all the way back. You have a very limited time window. You have to get all the way back to the start of the map and get on a helicopter and get out, and you won the game. You won the map. So it was basically an objective type third game mode. It's kind of like Spec Ops in a way, where you have to do certain things in order to win. Whereas with zombies, that was always seen as something where it didn't necessarily force you to do anything. You could basically do whatever you wanted. Either you could do the Easter egg, or you could survive for high-based rounded games. You could go to round 100 and not worry about the Easter egg, or you could do the Easter egg and complete the map. That's essentially how zombies had always done it. And Extinction basically took the Spec Ops route, only this time it was just very different, and it did a new thing. And of course, with a newer, different type of enemy to fight, that being aliens. And I think at the time, a lot of people probably looked at that and said, wow, this is really stupid. Why would I ever play this? And I think looking back on it now, I ultimately have to give Infinity Ward at the time, of course, the people who were working on the game at the time. Obviously, not everybody who's working on that game, who worked on the game then, is still working at Infinity Ward nowadays. I have to give those people massive credit, because they really did swing for the fence. They tried something new, and ultimately, I just have to give them so much credit, because at the end of the day, I feel that there is a good amount of enjoyment. Not everything I feel does work with Ghosts, because I think there are some things that people just felt like maybe made the game a little bit overclouded, or not even over, like, that's probably not even the right way to say it, just like maybe overstuffed, because there's a lot of things you can do in the game that ultimately probably give you more of an advantage that they probably should have given you in the first place, because there are abilities that you can do, like you can put I think you can put down one of the I forgot the name, but it's one of the score streaks that you have in multiplayer. You can set it down and it basically launches a mine. It's like a bouncing Betty. It's like a futuristic bouncing Betty. It's got like 4 different pods. They launch in the air and they fire an explosion at an enemy. Or you could give your teammates fire-based rounds, like incendiary rounds, or you could give them armor. You could have like different abilities, and ultimately, I feel like that did help with customization in some places, but I feel like some people also at the same time probably looked at that and said, well, hey, maybe this is a little bit too much, maybe like lighten it up a little bit. And then ultimately, of course, Extinction, it being like any other third game mode, it had multiple maps, multiple DLC maps, and of course, one of the things that I think hindered Extinction and it not being as memorable as many people like to think it was is the fact that people just did not like any of the maps that game came out with. People really, really disliked the maps and the DLC that came out for Extinction. People were not really keen to a liking of any of the maps that came out. There were, I think, maybe 1 or 2 maps that people did genuinely like, but every other map I feel people really just had such a distaste for and just did not want to play it because it just felt so bad to play. It was just not fun. And look, I can't blame them. Ultimately, those maps, at the end of the day, they didn't bring everybody in. They really did not. And I'm not going to try and fault any person who did end up playing them because, look, maps are maps. You can only do so much with a map like that for the specific type of game mode that you're, giving us the ability to play, where it's an objective type game mode where you have to do certain things to traverse around a map. And so, again, I fully understand where a lot of people had complaints with that. But ultimately, again, I feel COD Ghosts, when we're talking about Extinction, again, if I had to give like my overall thought about how I feel about Extinction, I would say Extinction was just fine. I see it like I did with multiplayer. I think both multiplayer and Extinction were just okay. They weren't great and they weren't bad. They were just fine. They were there. And of course, that being said, I think the campaign was ultimately the only good thing about the game, if we're being completely honest. And again, yes, there were some things that ultimately I know a lot of people say are just really, really bad with the game, and to this day I can disagree with that. And as long as we get along and just have those disagreements and understand that hey, this is where I come from, this is where other people can come from, and look. For those of you who are watching this video right now, ultimately, it can come down to you and how you feel too. And if you want to discuss that in the comment section below, please, by all means, comment down below what you thought of COD Ghosts, what you thought of every game mode, what you thought about everything that I said in regards to this game. Because ultimately, that's going to wrap up this video. And with the final thing that I'll say about Call of Duty Ghosts is that I do think that the game, looking back on it now, was really just... in my personal opinion, I think it was an overly hated game. I do. I think it was very, very, very overly hated. And I feel like the best way that I could say that the game was that, not that it was an underrated game, but the game was just fine. It was an okay game. It was like a middle of the road, middle tier COD game. Ultimately, and I've made a COD tier list on my channel. I'll link it down below in the description if you guys want to go check it out. I don't remember off the top of my head where I ranked Ghosts, but I'm pretty sure I ranked Ghosts higher than most people probably would have ranked it. Like, I don't think I put it in D, and I don't think I put it in F. I want to say I put it in like a low tier C, and ultimately I feel like that's where it should be. It's a middle of the pack, middle tier game that ultimately, with all the COD games that we've had come out now, I feel like COD Ghosts just really is better than, some of the games that we've had in this franchise. Like, ultimately, if I had to choose to play COD Ghosts over the last 4 years of crap that we have gotten, I would happily, 100 times out of 100, play Call of Duty Ghosts over Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare 2019, Call of Duty Vanguard, and then Black Ops 4. I would happily play Ghosts way more than any of those 4 games. And so that's essentially, what I have to say about COD Ghosts, guys. In a way, this is almost kind of like a retrospective of like what COD Ghosts was to me anyway. Obviously, I can't speak for everybody. That's ultimately not the rule. That's not how it works. Everybody is going to think differently about everything. And this is just ultimately like my retrospective about how I felt about Ghosts and how I feel it looks nowadays. And ultimately, again, it leads into, you know, I'm probably going to go back and play Extinction, because Extinction is something that I actually want to really go back and play again. I've played the multiplayer for COD Ghosts recently, you know, in recent years. I've gone back and played the multiplayer, but I just hadn't played Extinction. Extinction is something that I just haven't played since the game first came out, and so I'm thinking about going back and starting it up again, maybe playing that original map and putting it out as a video for you guys. So if you guys want to see that, make sure to drop a like on the video. I greatly appreciate it. And overall, again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and you know, I would greatly appreciate that. Let me know how you feel. If you enjoyed this video, turn on that notification bell so that you can find out when a video of mine is being uploaded every now and then when I have to upload a video. And so ultimately, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Again, I appreciate it, and you know, I appreciate you guys if you, again, be respectful in the comment section when we're discussing this, no matter where I post this video, whether it be on Reddit, because ultimately I'm going to post this video to Reddit too, and you know, just a way to have a discussion and, you know, bring newer people in to talk about this game. And again, this leads into what I may want to start sometime next week, which is, you know, rebooting up Extinction. So yeah, guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in this video. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys do, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Once again, sorry, I know I've probably said that 3 times already now in this video, but yeah, again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and yeah, that was me talking about Call of Duty Ghosts. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.